Welcome to this episode of Junk Food on the Road. Today we're going to go back in time a little bit and fill in a gap we've missed and talk about...
Sri Lanka.
Yeah, we went there a while ago.
It was a while ago.
2015? 5 years?
Yeah, probably before we started recording these.
Probably. So Sri Lanka was quite an experience. The first thing we had to do before we went even to our hotel, because we were leaving Colombo the next day, was go to the train station, which is where Chris found his favorite thing about train stations.
Well, I mean, I love train stations, so...
In Sri Lanka.
I love train stations in general. But the cool thing about Sri Lankan train stations is the amount of snacks they have available. And it's not...
Street snacks.
Yeah, that's the thing, is they're not regular snacks. It's like basically on your way into the train station, it's just packed with all these vendors selling like snacks, a lot of deep fried stuff.
And they're all like behind glass cases and they have there's like little carts.
And there's like little bins. It's almost like you buy like bulk amounts of it, and it's like chips and like various chickpea noodle things and things like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really cool, and they're really good. Like a lot of them are quite fresh.
And the notion is that you're going to go on a train, which is very popular in Sri Lanka for like such a small country. The train is extremely popular, and basically, the notion is you go to the train station before you get on the train, you go to these vendors and you buy yourself your train snacks, which to me is brilliant because trains and snacking is something that I've had since childhood because I used to ride the train when I was a kid, and one of our traditions was we'd pick up a bunch of snacks and eat them on the train, so that was kind of cool.
To this day, every time Chris smells diesel exhaust, he wants salt and vinegar chips.
That's the truth. It's like it's the thing that just twigs in my mind. Yeah. Diesel and salt and vinegar chips.
But those were excellent snacks.
Yeah, and I think sometimes some of the vendors also go inside the station, because I remember when we were actually riding the train and we'd stop at stations, there'd be people along the train selling stuff too.
Yeah, on the platforms.
So right? I think it's sort of it's basically snacking and riding a train goes hand in hand. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
And I might be remembering this wrong because it has been a long time, but I seem to remember those vendors being other places too.
Yeah, they were other places, but they were definitely like the train station was where you saw most of them in one place.
Yeah.
Like there was you couldn't go into a train station without passing several snack counters with various snacks.
Yeah. I don't remember too many sweets.
No, they definitely go more salty. Like, even if I look at like Candy Critic and I look at some of the treats that I've reviewed from Sri Lanka, a lot of them are salty, if not almost all of them. I think there was one or two non-salty, and they weren't great. The non-salty snacks weren't great, but a lot of the ones that I really sort of went for and really enjoyed were salty snacks, and they were good. And it isn't just chips. They also have like a lot of like chickpea noodle type things and
nuts. There were a lot of nuts.
A lot of nuts. So.
Really, I like nuts.
Although a lot of things were spicy too.
But not too spicy.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, a little maybe spicy for
you. I mean, I would say that Sri Lanka is a salty, spicy country.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that also echoes in the food as well. A lot of the stuff is salty and spicy. So, if you really dislike spicy food, you're probably not going to have the greatest time.
However, I did find it really difficult to find Sri Lankan food in restaurants.
Yeah, it's very like we found a lot of Italian
food. Sri Lankan is like the home cooking,
and
in the restaurants it's like Chinese and Italian, and we found some KFC at some point that was a little spicy.
Yeah, the KFC in Sri Lanka comes in two types. There's spicy and ridiculously spicy. So I ate that a couple times and it was very difficult.
Yeah, but we found one Sri Lankan place that had dosas.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good.
That was in Kandy, I think.
Yeah, it was in Kandy.
It was just like a little sort of shop and, kind of place. I think it had like newspapers on the tables and extremely greasy, and they just throw you some dosas with a bunch of dips and you go crazy.
It's not really snack related, but the train ride to Kandy was spectacular.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the trains through the mountains of Sri Lanka are some of the most famous trains in the world and unbelievable.
Yeah,
just
gorgeous.
Beautiful. And they often go with the doors open in the train, so you can actually
Well, we were in second class, so
But
First class, I think, had air conditioning, so the doors were
the
closed.
doors were closed. So in second class, where we were, the doors were open, so you could hang out of the train while you're going through like the jungles and everything like that. It's stunning, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, stunning. But yeah, so yeah, I think Kandy was the only place we actually found a Sri Lankan food restaurant.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, just in case people don't know what a dosa is, it's basically it's a cross between a pancake and a crepe. It's a little bit more pancakey.
but it's got stuff inside of it.
Yeah, but
like it's like a wrap.
But the dosa itself is actually the pancake,
Yeah.
and then the stuff you get with it. Sometimes with dosas you get the dosa, then you sort of fill it up yourself, and sometimes they're pre-made. It depends on where you get them.
Yeah, and you dip them in sauces.
Yeah.
And I mean, the guy at the dosa place was so nice to us.
Yeah.
You know, he told us what the different sauces were and what goes best with what, and showed us, how the Sri Lankans like to eat it. And, you dump like 3 or 4 different sauces in your tray where your dosas are, and then you pick up your dosas and dip them as you like. And
Yeah.
the sauces kind of mix into each other a little bit, but,
And generally there's a variation in spiciness. There's the extremely spicy one, and then I think there was a cooler, like, yogurty one too.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, so it was good.
Yeah.
I liked dosas. I mean, we've had dosas since, and strangely enough, we've been to more Sri Lankan restaurants outside of Sri Lanka than we have in Sri Lanka.
Because there aren't any there.
Yeah, it's weird. But it's and generally, I would say if you come across a Sri Lankan restaurant, go for it and try the dosas.
Yeah, they're really good. And then I guess we had one of the most unusual snack experiences when we were in Nuwara Eliya, because we went to a tea plantation, and we ate a tea leaf fresh off the bush.
Yep.
That was really cool because it actually tasted kind of like tea.
A little bit like tea. Yeah, it had a bit. It tasted a little more grassy, but it definitely tasted more green because it was still alive. But it definitely had like a slight tea aftertaste.
Yeah, and we had a tea tasting in the little shop afterwards, and we were schooled on the proper way to make a good steeped tea.
And if you think to yourself, tea is tea. If you make a tea properly, it's amazing how good it is.
Yeah, it's not that difficult.
So what's the process? Do you remember?
Well, okay, so you have to have fresh water. Like, you can't have it second boiled. It can only be boiled once. It can be tap water, but it can only be boiled once. And then before you pour the water over the tea, you boil it, and then you turn off the kettle, and you wait till the bubbles stop completely. And that's the water you use to pour over the tea. And then you wait the appropriate number of minutes. We have a rule of thumb of 5 in our house.
If not marked. If it's not marked on the tea bag.
But if it's marked on the tea bag, follow that rule. But yeah, there's always been an expression that tea is best if it's off the boil. And that's what off the boil apparently means, is you boil it and then you let it stop boiling completely before you do the pouring.
And I don't know if we learned this in Sri Lanka, we might have learned this in England. But tea, if a tea is from a region, often what it means is that tea is designed for the water in that region, not necessarily from that region.
Oh, you're talking about like the Yorkshire tea and the...
Yeah, like the type of water, often they design teas to go with particular waters. So the idea being is if you have like a tea, like a Yorkshire, like the Yorkshire tea is quite popular. And part of the reason why Yorkshire tea is so popular is because Yorkshire actually has really good water for making tea. And so the tea is very particular to the water, and so they actually brew it and grind it. That was another thing. We learned about grinds of tea.
Yeah, and tips. Tips are the very, very young leaves before they've unfurled.
And they pluck those individually.
Yes.
And you can buy, like, the most expensive tea you can buy is golden tip tea, and it's from a very particular altitude, because altitude, depending on where your tea is growing, changes the quality of the tea. So it's basically like the entire tip of the thing, like the youngest bit, hand-picked from an exact altitude, and that's considered the highest quality. And then there's silver tip, and then I think there's
just tips,
and then there's sort of regular tea, and then
there's like the different
dust.
Grinds. Yeah, tea dust.
Tea dust is the lowest.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of gradings. I can't claim to be an expert or remember everything that we were told, but it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And indeed, I'd heard rumors of this before, but it's also, we learned that black tea and green tea come from the same plant, the same tea bush,
but they're just processed slightly differently the way they're dried.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the difference is now.
It's like a fermentation or something like that.
Fermentation or a roasting or something. And literally it's like it takes 24 hours from like the picking to the boxing up and sending out. It's like super fast.
Yeah. And they have machines that do it, but it's sort of based on a traditional thing. The thing that's also fascinating is tea is not machined.
It's still hand-picked.
Hand-picked, so there's all these people with these little scissors with baskets attached to them, and then they have giant baskets on their back, and they're paid probably not enough money.
Yeah, I don't think they're paid very much.
To pick this tea and process it. And the place we went to, I think, is owned by Prince Charles.
There are some plantations there that are owned by Prince Charles.
So that's sort of...
I'm not sure if we went to one of those.
Yeah, he's sort of well known for owning quite a few tea plantations in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, tea was definitely, that was the focus of our trip. There was a lot of fruit in Sri Lanka too.
I don't remember.
Like tropical bananas, and that's what you would expect for sort of an island in near the tropics. I don't know if it is tropical officially, but that's.
I should think it is.
Yeah, so you get a lot of coconuts, and I think we saw some avocados growing there.
Oh, that's right. It was the first time we ever saw mangoes and avocados on trees.
Yeah, now we're kind of used to mangoes on trees.
Yeah, there's one right outside my office here.
Yeah, so. But yeah, it was, Sri Lanka was an okay trip. We had a pretty good time, but I wasn't, like, blown away by it. But if you think about it, there's lots of interesting foodie stuff that goes on there. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, there's things. There's like a temple of the Buddha's tooth, and the tea stuff is really interesting, and there's some hikes that are very nice.
And the train is amazing.
The train is amazing. And we couldn't take the train for the southern part of our journey, and we were sort of like, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll take the bus. And that really was... we discovered why there's no train there. It's just too hilly and treacherous to build a train track. So
it's also too hilly and treacherous to have a bus on a road.
Yeah.
But they do that anyway.
It was pretty terrifying.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was a good time. We ate a lot of times. Went to an Italian restaurant.
Chinese,
and then we went to a couple of hotels that had like sort of fancy buffets as well.
Yeah.
So, I was
disappointed in the lack of actual Sri Lankan food.
A lot of European food, particularly in Galle.
Yeah, Galle is just like a little tiny Europe.
Yeah, it was weird because at the time I think we had lived in Greece or were living in Greece.
We were living in Pakistan when we went.
Yeah, so we had lived in Greece and we went to Galle and everybody was talking about how cool it was. Then we went there and it was like, well, this is just like being in Greece again, which, Greece has great food and some amazing stuff to do, but it's sort of like we didn't come to Sri Lanka to see Greece.
No, we came to Sri Lanka to see Sri Lanka.
Yeah, so that was a little disappointing.
And again, like we found a couple of nice restaurants with yummy food, but certainly not Sri Lankan.
Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe like Sri Lankan is really like home cooked and or places where they're just so off the tourist beaten path that it's hard to find them.
But snacks.
Snacks were good.
Snacks and the carts by the train stations were awesome.
Were very awesome. Yeah, I got a lot of really good snacks in Sri Lanka. I was quite surprised. So, well, thanks for listening to another episode of Junk Food on the Road, where we talked about Sri Lanka.
And snacks.
And snacks.
And tea.
And tea. As always, you can follow us on Twitter @CandyCritic, or go to candycritic.org and find links to all of our other social media, including Instagram and Tumblr and Facebook. You can also go to patreon.com/candycritic and you can sponsor us there. We have all kinds of cool content, extra stuff. We're working on some new stuff lately too. That's pretty cool. You get videos and podcasts ahead of time. All kinds of fun stuff you get to check out if you go to our Patreon page. So make sure to check that out. I think that's it. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Concrete turns to golden white. Toffee airplanes taking flight. Licorice branches shade your eyes. Not just blue but rainbow skies. Snowflakes fall like powdered sugar. Swedish fish swim city will never ever stop, except when you become awake, awaiting your lovely lunch break. You're just an average human being, not doing anything to benefit humanity. La 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 la.